So I made a couple of videos in the past 2 days that have sparked a strange pseudo-controversy. And admittedly, there have been controversies in politics that have gotten me kind of, like on alert and concerned, a little bit of worry sometimes, depending on what the controversy might be. But this one has been nothing but fun, and it's funny. And I actually love talking about this stuff. For those that aren't familiar with the past videos I've done on this issue, I basically made a video where I went over a New York Post story that said, women are struggling to find men who make as much money as them to date. It's not the first time I've talked about this either. But for some reason, this one video sparked a big outrage, and I have no idea why, but particularly the outrage was among, feminist bloggers. Women who are nearing or are above 30 years old and work for these woke outlets, and they're verified, and they're tweeting screenshots and all this stuff, and yeah, I get it. Now, it's obvious why they're offended. The video is me talking about why I'm not interested in them. But I'll tell you this, look, just because I am not interested, don't take the rejection personally. I'm one dude giving one opinion. However, I then went on to cite Jezebel, which states in this report, Jezebel, the feminist outlet, they wrote about how every male of every age, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this better. They found that men of all ages find a woman at 20 years old to be the most attractive. So the point I made was, let's talk about this. Who do you want to date? You have these women in these stories who say they can't find men who make as much money as they do. They're finding guys with no ambition, guys who, don't make a lot of money, and they're upset by it. They're not finding good men. Okay, let's flip the script. Let's take a guy who is physically attractive, charismatic, and economically attractive. That's a word they use. And everyone's all mad like I brought up. I'm like, dude, I read an article, man. Come on, give me a break. So you have a guy who makes good money. He's a physically attractive guy, and he's confident and charismatic. Who do you think he's going to try and woo? He's not going to try and woo a 30-year-old woman with a career for several reasons. Now, based on the title of this video, which you've probably seen, we have a study here, how Americans really see success, and we're going to branch off again. We're going to extend this story. Why do I think my assessment is correct? The number one factor for individuals in terms of what they view as being successful is having children. I am not exaggerating. This is a new report that has just come out. Parenthood was the most common achievement for individuals' views of success, but ranked 33 out of 76 when people were asked about things society considers important for success. So let me show you some very interesting things. Why is it that these career 30-year-old women are really, really mad at me and it's a controversy for some reason? Well, it's because, for one, according to the study, let me see if I have it pulled up. They say that, where did it just go? Oh, come on, I just had it. Females assign 20% more importance to the attribute of being famous and 30% more importance to, quote, has a large social media following as a perceived factor of societal success. So I want to stress something important. Societal success and individual success are differentiated in this. When individuals are asked, what do you think would make you successful? They say, being a parent. It's incredible. So then when you take a guy who's attractive in every possible way, what's he going to do? He's going to pick a mate that will have children with him. It doesn't mean she has to be a traditional housewife cooking dinners, because that's definitely not what I said, but of course that's what they're trying to claim. No, I just said I want a woman whose goal isn't going to be that she will become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Like, of course she can work and have expertise and life experience and all that stuff. And then for me, I'm looking for somebody who's now ready to have a family and wants to raise a family. So it's like kind of traditional in the sense that progressives have gone really far off the deep end and want this family where it's both parents working full time and a housekeeper takes care of their kids. I'm not about that. So here's the thing. When asked, what do you think society views as success? The number one is fame. And I mean, it makes sense. You're successful. Everyone knows who you are. That's what they think. But here's the thing. That's what people think others want. So it's really incredible. You're someone, they ask you, how do you define success? And they say, I just want to be a parent. Okay. But everybody else wants to be famous. That's what they think. And I learned something really interesting when I was younger, because I genuinely thought that too. And I learned it wasn't the case. People don't want to be famous. And anybody who says very few people actually want to. And that's why very few people actually are. Most people want to live a quiet life. And I kid you not, have kids. Have kids. So now let's factor in all this data. Okay. Because I got more data I want to show you. Take a guy. He's succeeded. He's built a career. He is, early 30s. And he's going to say, now, what do I want to be successful? Is it success to have a large following and to be famous? No, it's not. It means nothing. And I talk about this all the time. If they banned all my channels outright, I would say, finally, a burden has been lifted off my shoulders, and I'll go kick back by a lake, man, and just chill out and just, look at the stars and have a good time. But, in the end, I'm passionate. And I like doing the things that I like doing, so I do them. Given no alternative, then I would be free to just go and chill and mind my own business, live a quiet life. So it's a double-edged sword, essentially. Of course, I like doing what I'm doing. That's why I do it. But if they forced it away from me, hey, what's the worst that could happen? I can be successful by having a family. And I consider that to be accurate. I don't know if I would consider having a family to be the number one, but it's definitely in the top 3, probably. I think you want to be successful in terms of career and individual development, and a family is a part of that. So it's hard for me to define. But I will stress, first, to these feminist career women who are shocked that a man would say this, like, is anyone really surprised by this? I can't believe it's controversial that successful, attractive dudes want younger women. I mean, that's just kind of obvious. Everyone knows that. Now, if you want to argue it shouldn't be that way, hey, yeah, by all means. Like, I laid some criticism the other day saying, guys, come on, grow up, find a more mature woman to be with. But look, in the end, guys are the way they are, and what they find attractive is what they find attractive. There is a weird blip on the data from Jezebel showing that younger guys like cougars. That's true too. But I think the issue is what we see here from these studies, or from the study, is that women, they believe more than men that being famous and having a large social following is more important to society. So if you take an individual who wants to appear successful, like what do they think other people would view as success? You end up with women who assign more importance to being famous and having a social media following. Well, that makes sense. These feminists who are angry at me are likely to view their careers as woke bloggers, as woke feminist writers, as more important than, having a family if they want to appear successful. I think it may be that some of these people have a chip on their shoulder. They're, they've grown up being told they're not as good as guys, or they have to fight to be harder, or whatever. And I've talked to some women who have said that all their life they were told you have to work twice as hard to be better or more successful than guys. Maybe it's not that women assign more importance to being famous and having a social media following, but it's that men assign less. They're much less likely to think anyone cares about being famous. Regardless, it's not surprising then to see that people were, these particular feminists were angry that I made a video. But I just want to stress, man, it's so weird to me that I can literally pull up like some articles and talk about my personal feelings on the internet about relationships, and they get offended. Reminds me of that Ricky Gervais bit. I love this bit. He says Twitter is, he basically, I'm going to kill it. I'm not a comedian, okay? But he talks about how people on Twitter, they'll see a tweet from you and they'll take it personally. And he's like, it wasn't meant for you. It's just like a thought, right? He's like, that's like going to a town center and seeing a posting for guitar lessons and taking it and going, but I don't want guitar lessons. And then he's like, then they call you up and say, are you the one offering guitar lessons? But I don't want any. And it's like, what? It's for people who wanted it. Look, I'm not surprised these feminist women aren't attracted to me. I have no problem with that. Most women, like in this world, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say women. Most people in this world are very picky about their type. Types exist. We get it. Maybe I'm not your type. I've got more than enough, women that I've gone on dates with and have had relationships with. Just because you are not interested, that's fine. If you can disagree with my opinion, that's fine. But dude, like who I choose is not going to change. It's not an opinion you can even argue against. It's the weirdest thing in the world to me that they're like, can you believe Tim actually said this? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, some people have really weird fetishes and do strange things with cucumbers. Can you believe they did that? I honestly can, because I've seen some of these websites. It's not shocking. We get it. People like really weird, really specific things when it comes to dating. And so I made a point. The data shows there is a trend in this regard. Does it mean it's morally right? No, I'm not going to argue morality. I'm just saying guys like 20-year-old women. Surprise! So here's the thing. I think one of the problems we have, and we can see it here from this data, is that something has happened in our society that has led females to assign more importance to being famous and having a large social media following, or at least believing that's what is important. And guys take it less seriously. But everyone at the end of the day wants to be a parent. They view that as successful. At a certain point, I think if an individual doesn't view parenthood as being that important, they're now an outlier compared to the rest of society. You end up with these women who dedicate all their time and energy to having a career because they think that is what makes them successful, whereas the average person just wants to have a family. So let me put it this way. The women, the feminists on Twitter who are outraged and angry over this and who are spamming and tweeting and all that stuff, all their, like, it has more to do with them not being in line with the average person in this country and being upset about it. The point I'm trying to make is, I believe at some point they were misled. And I think, not all of them, I gotta be very careful on how I phrase this, because what I'm trying to say is, don't be angry about the way things are because you've made a different choice. I respect your choice. I think it's fantastic. I think more women should choose to live the life they want to choose and be free from any constraints and societal pressures and all that stuff. And for those women that form powerful followings and become very famous and successful, hey man, nothing but respect. Hard work is much respected. Absolutely. Anybody who's willing to push ahead and strive and do what they have to do to succeed in the way they view success, more power to you. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that society views parenthood as the single factor, the single most important factor in individual success. And that means the women who don't are the outliers. I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I am not condemning anybody. I'm just saying the average person prefers to have a family as a sign of success. That means if a guy finally gets that big promotion and he nails the Bergensen account and gets a high five from his boss and a big fat bonus check, that's not the definition of success to him at the end of the day. On average, the definition of success is him coming home to his family and saying, guess who's going to college? I secured the deal. We've just, now I'm going to get the promotion and be able to put away for my kids to go to college. I'm making a point. I don't know if college is the right thing. The point is, what defines the success for the average person is to come home and to be a parent. And so here's what I think. To these women, the point I was making in that video, which they got so outraged by, was maybe you need a house husband. A relationship isn't built upon both people being at work all day and then hiring a housekeeper to raise your kids. If on average people view parenthood as the biggest factor in individual success, and that's what the study says, parenthood, the most common achievement for individuals' view of success. Well, then you're going to find, if you're a woman who's working, then you're going to find a lot of guys, even guys who don't make a lot of money, are also likely to view having kids as being successful. This presents an inherent conundrum for feminists due to biology. And again, let me just state facts and point these things out, and I know it's going to generate controversy anyway, but I will say it. I've said it before, and I will say it again. So for all the outrage that comes my way following this next statement, I ask you, where were you 2 years ago when I said the exact same thing? There will never be complete equality between males and females when it comes to career for one simple reason. And when I say never, I mean generally, but it could be, we can break this down. Women carry children, men do not. That means the physical toll of carrying the child, it matters. End of story. So we can knock down every societal barrier. We can institute every law possible. But biologically, men have the advantage when it comes to career of not having to use their body for having kids. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that is a fact. Now, there are societal things that can be changed, like mandated parental leave when both parents are expecting a child and the guy can't be working. But I've heard all of these stories. And listen, I know there's going to be a lot of feminists who are angry and outraged that I've said something like this, but let's be real, man. I know many feminists myself who had kids, and they said their career was held back when they had to take even a little bit of time off to have the child. The ultimate disadvantage in this space could come down to a fraction of a fraction and become statistically negligible. If the woman works through her pregnancy and then only takes off a short amount of time, after having the kid, a very short amount of time, it's possible that it's no different than any other paid leave or paid vacation. But in the end, there are physical differences between men and women. That's controversial. It absolutely is. Don't ask me why. I think it's fairly obvious, and that's why we have maternity leave and not paternity leave. I, for one, think we should have parental leave as a whole, and fathers should take time off to raise their kids. Absolutely. And this can do a lot to change the disadvantage. But I bring this up because I've read numerous stories about women who, so there's one particular story. I know a man and a woman who worked in the same industry, and I'll avoid getting too specific because I don't want them to get called out for this. But they both did the same thing. At one point, they both, around the same age, they both had kids, not together, with different families. The woman decided to take some time off to raise her new child, and the man took off only a little bit of time to raise his child, but for the most part, kept working. 10 years later, the guy is extremely successful with a huge portfolio and tons of money, and the woman is not. She's making only a little bit more than she was a decade before. And she told me she decided to be there for her child and raise her child, and that held her back from her career. I mean, this is a common problem. I find it a common issue faced by women who are trying to have successful careers and also have a family. That's why the trope that we see in media and often mentioned by the feminists is called having it all, where they argue whether you can or you can't. I'm not going to say whether you can or you can't. I'm just pointing this out. In the end, I don't want to ramble too much on this. Let me just stress there is a reality, at least today. It may change. It may be due to societal factors. Men may like 20-year-old women for social norm reasons or whatever. I have no idea. You know, there have been arguments presented. I'm not saying it can or can't change. I'm just saying today, the data shows us the number one factor in success for an individual when asked, on average, the most common, not for everybody, but the most common is parenthood. So when you take an economically attractive guy, charismatic, confident, and physically attractive, his choice will be to have a family on average. And that means for women in their 30s who are working, on average, will be less likely to find a high-ranking male. You need to watch these documentaries. There's one called like The Science of Sex. And they do these really interesting things. One of the things they did was they had 100 men and 100 women. And then they had all of the men look at photos, all of the men look at photos of the women and rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. And the inverse, all the women looked at the photos of the men, scale of 1 to 10, ranked them. They then went out into the street and they showed these photographs to random people and said, how would you rate this person on a scale of 1 to 10? Interestingly, the public average, like the random person on the street would look at it and assign basically the same value that was the aggregate. So, you had one guy, and out of the 100 women, they rated him between 6 and 8, so he's a 7 on average. The public gave the same average. It's exactly what you'd expect to find for men and women. Then they did something really interesting. They added career stats to the cards. All of a sudden, a guy who was rated a 10, tall, chiseled, 5 o'clock shadow, ripped kind of, they said on the career chart that he was a theater manager making like $30,000 a year. He became a 7. They took a guy who was ranked a 5, short, pudgy, scraggly hair and glasses, and they said he was a software engineer making $500,000, and he became a 7 as well. What we've seen over and over again, whether it's true or not, I'm just saying it's been presented in media and these studies, is that men and women view attractiveness very differently. Women are looking, as they say, for many different factors, economic attractiveness being one of them. That's why women are complaining about economic attractiveness and men aren't. Men don't look to women and say, I hope they make enough money. In fact, the trope is inverted. Many of these stories say that men are intimidated by women who make too much money. And it could be for a lot of reasons. Maybe they're scared the woman will leave them because she doesn't need him. That's a very feminist thing to say, right? Maybe it's because they feel inadequate, like they can't provide. I'm not saying what the reason is. That's just what they present, okay? Take those into account and then realize a guy who has a ton of money is likely going to be looking for a young woman who doesn't have money, who he can provide for, and who can have a family with him. All of these things line up. I can't believe it's controversial to even say, and it's warranted 3 now 20-minute videos. But hey, bring it on. I really don't care. It's funny because people claim that, I do these things as a grift or whatever, and I'm just trying to pander. It's like, oh, please, dude. I will court the controversy if I think what I'm saying is true, okay? So all the woke feminists that want to get mad at me and drag me and insult me on Twitter, I don't care. I'm just a dude talking about his feelings on the internet, okay? If you're mad about that, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm just sitting in this nice little studio room that I have, and I'm looking at a camera, and I'm talking about how I feel based on something something I read. You want to get mad and salty about my personal feelings? I'm going to be confused because I never asked you out on a date anyway. And I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you said no and didn't find me attractive. That's cool. Everybody has different tastes and different wants. So don't get mad at me for talking about what I want and talking about why I think this is the case on average. If you want to disagree with me, I'm more than welcome to hear any argument in the contrary, for sure. There was some other data I really wanted to get into. And I'll just mention it lightly. This data from Jonathan Haidt, Corey Clark posted it, that conservatives tend to be more concerned with their immediate social group, and liberals are more concerned with broader social groups like humanity as a whole. And that makes sense. Individualism versus collectivism. It's exactly what we see. So then I'm not surprised that these woke Twitter feminists are outraged that I'm saying these things because it's an affront to women, based on what they need and the group as a whole. And I'm not surprised conservatives agree because it's about what the individual wants. Again, let me just push this point straight through. Women, according to the study, are more likely to view being famous and having a large social media following as being a sign of success. That means the larger social group is accepting of you in some capacity. Conservative individuals ultimately say that parenthood is the sign of success. So don't be surprised then when liberals tend to view being famous as a big factor because they're more concerned with society, and it tends to be these woke feminist women. That's just what we can expect. So look, man, here's what I'll say. At the end of the day, I am not assigning values. I am not trying to generalize literally everybody. I am a staunch individualist, and I believe the individual is the smallest minority, and we must respect and protect individuals. That means if you're a woman who chooses to have a career and you're in your early 30s, you have every right to do what you do and to live your life as happy and be fulfilled. But don't get mad at me for pointing out data, okay? I can't do anything about that. Now, I also want to make sure I stress, you will absolutely find your special someone, and I'm sure to all these woke feminists who are angry at me and think my opinions are stupid, there is absolutely a guy out there for you who also thinks I'm offensive and stupid. And I think you guys would go great together. And so by all means, enjoy it, rag on me, insult the beanie, whatever you want to do. I'm glad you found someone that fulfills you. That's all it's really about. Okay, I'm glad you have a career and you make good money and you're free and independent. Those are all respectable things. I have tremendous respect for anybody who wants to work hard to achieve what they want. And that includes somebody who just wants to be a mother. That includes a guy who wants to be a house husband. That includes both men and women who want to be the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And to all of these women who are running the military-industrial complex, which is true. I believe every CEO of these companies now is female. Congratulations. It says a lot that those that manufacture weapons of war and bomb kids can be female too. You can tell what my priorities lie, right? Stick around. Next video is coming up at 4 p.m. youtube.com/Timcast. I will see you all there.